So Heads Up is a data platform that connects an individual patient and a practitioner provider, and it creates a common space where healthcare can be accurately tracked, measured, and optimized. So how do we do that? Let's take a walk through the system. So the first step is getting users in the system through the Manage Users function. You can import CSV files, and if you have an existing practice management or electronic health record system, we can actually integrate into your existing systems and create what's called a single sign-on connection. And the first thing we do for each client is we give them the concept of their own personal health dashboard. And the dashboard is going to contain the metrics that you need them to pay attention to as part of the journey. So the first thing we do is we allow the ability to capture data from clients remotely. And the way we do this is we connect to the latest cutting-edge sensors and wearables on the market. And what these are doing is they're passively collecting data in real time, sending it into the system so that we can use that for day-to-day, what I like to call micro calibrations. These are the lifestyle changes we can make. So you can see here, we integrate all of the top FDA-approved medical devices, and we will customize these dashboards based on your exact programs and protocols. So the next section we want to review is lab results, and Heads Up is able to take in diagnostic lab data from any source. You can see that we pull in traditional blood work here. We can also pull in data from DEXA scans, in-body scans, urine and microbiome, heavy metals, stool, and we can start to see and track these lab results over time. The next thing we want to look at is what we call progress reports. And progress reports, that's what's going to let us look at an individual's health over the last month, over the last quarter. You can see here, it looks like this day we hit 208. So that's a day I'm going to want to double click into. And I may want to ask the individual, was there a specific meal that you ate on this day? And if I can say to a person, instead of eating a cup of rice, why don't you try a quarter cup of rice? And we start to see how we can make these small changes now that are going to have long-term benefit on preserving the health of the system. You can see we're capturing a lot of different information, and when we work with a clinic or an organization, we'll build each portal to help you capture exactly what you need. So we custom build each instance of Heads Up exactly to your program and exactly to your protocol. So that's what each individual will experience. Now what we want to do is start to say, okay, I've got this data now coming in from dozens, hundreds, thousands of clients. How do I start to analyze this information at scale? First is we want the ability to identify outliers. So the first thing we want to do is have the ability to come in here and set notifications to only flag the things that we're interested in. So that's where we can start to take all this data in and really just look for very specific signals that you care about, that you want to engage in. This is going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to help you identify only the instances where you need to engage. So that's alerts and reminders. When we work with your organization, we'll build out all the intake forms and assessments that you need. They can be quickly assigned, and we'll show you how this data comes in. Each of the answers to these questions is also stored in the database. Templates allow us to create content that we want to create once and share many. This is the HIPAA-compliant messaging, as I mentioned, so we can do secure messaging to each client bidirectionally, all encrypted, all stored in the database, all very secure, accessible to clients on the go through the mobile app or through the web browser. So here is where we can start to build any kind of report on top of the data that you want of my entire cohort of people. Very simple queries we can do on top of the data to answer questions quickly. So we launched the concierge service, and this is the simplest way for us to help you structure otherwise fragmented data. All you do is click on concierge, browse onto your computer hard drive. Let's say this is blood work for an individual client. All we need to know is who does the PDF file belong to, and you can upload multiple. We will take it from PDF, structure the data, and put it back on the trend line with all of the other tests that represent the same value. That's how we start to holistically bring fragmented data together. We just need to know what is it that you're trying to measure, How do you want to define success for your program? And then we'll build an instance of Heads Up exactly to your business and get you the exact outcomes you need. That's Heads Up. That's how we make health measurable. Thank you.
Hey, gang, listen, we are so excited for today. Hello, hello. We're seeing all these people come into the chat. You guys are logging in. I would love to know about you all. Tell me where you're at, what type of practitioner you are. Are you already using peptides? Have you been using them for a while? You're just getting started. You have no idea. Give me kind of an idea, just a frame of reference. It's going to help me just know who I'm talking to as we get ready to go into today. We are so super excited. Yay!
Thanks, Melissa. All
Yeah.
right. So I've got 3 minutes after. I'm going to load up the presentation. All right. Can you guys see my slides?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can see him.
How
Need
about now?
peptides. Great first. Yes, we can see him.
All right. Oh, I see
Awesome.
Canadians coming in, Alberta,
I
Canada.
know we got the UK. This is so beautiful, you guys. I'm so excited.
Awesome. I'm a
Denver,
total
Texas.
peptide nerd, Melissa. So to get the download from you is going to be awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and we
I
have
hope I
Gus
don't
on.
mess up.
Welcome, Gus.
Hey David, how you doing, man?
Doing great.
Oh,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Gus. Awesome. Great.
All right, everybody. So let's officially kick things off on our peptide webinar with Dr. Melissa. So just what we're going to cover here today, we'll do some intros for the panelists and also some of our Q&A chat experts. We know there's going to be a lot of questions out there. Some of them get pretty technical and pretty clinical. So we've got some experts that can answer as many of those as possible. I'll turn it over to Melissa. She's going to take us through, I don't know, Melissa, what, about 40 minutes of content, roughly 45,
Probably a little more than that,
60,
but yeah. For
60.
I'll I'll make sure no more than 60 so we have time for a lot of good Q&A.
Awesome. Okay. That sounds great. And then we'll do our usual giveaways. We always like to give away great prizes from great companies that we're just digging and we want to share with you all. And then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A, and that will wrap things up for the day. So Melissa is a big brain, and she's one of my favorite people in this whole community and this whole scene. So Melissa, welcome, and thank you for taking time to share with us here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the work you're doing in the world.
Well, the work I'm doing. Doing a lot. I think my big mission is really about expanding human flourishing globally. And so I have a parent company, Human Longevity Global. So we have Human Longevity Institute and Peptide University. And I just think we live in a really exciting time where we no longer have to just treat and manage problems and symptoms, but we live in an era of what I'm referring to as healthcare 3.0. And as a clinician, I am just on a mission to help my fellow clinicians, practitioners, clinical researchers have the most up to date tools so they can feel absolutely empowered and inspired to move the needle to help people not only correct and heal foundational and functional health problems, but move into a realm that few of us have got to actually practice, which is really into what we like to call regenerative and optimization longevity healthcare, no longer treating problems, but building resilience back into the system, slowing down the rate and pace of biological aging to actually extend health span. And when we extend health span, we are extending and increasing our states of aliveness and vitality. And to me, it's about living better today for longer tomorrows. And when I can empower my fellow clinician and give them the tools that they can be out in the field doing this, it's a ripple effect. And we really can, bring that mission to life of truly like up leveling human flourishing globally. So it's a little bit of it. Lots of education, lots of talking, lots of training, lots of connecting and collaborating in a peer-to-peer environment.
Thank you, Dr. Melissa. You know, peptides are such incredibly powerful molecules, but we need education and we need
Yeah.
clinical protocols, we need training, and we need data. We need all of these things to come together to make sure that we're doing this safely, effectively, optimally. So I know that's a lot of the work that you're doing at Peptide University as well. Can you tell us a bit about that?
You just said it so perfectly because, the interesting thing about peptides, and we're actually going to break it down today. I'm going to share some in-depth biomarkers and metrics to look at on the slides. And we're going to talk about the different ways to think about using these molecules. But let's back up for a minute. Regardless of what type of practitioner, what we know is that there's really kind of the secret sauce. It all begins with lifestyle. What are the quality of the inputs coming in? So we look at how do we take lifestyle, how do we take molecules, and how do we take therapeutic modalities and create these precision stacks that truly do help the system heal, thrive, and optimize. And you cannot do that with just subjective input alone. Right. So it is this beautiful kind of culmination of subjective and objective measurements and markers, and really guiding the client and the patient back into their own self to increase their own sense of interoception, self care, self observance, and metrics, monitoring, measurements are the fastest path in to getting people kind of out of their own way, right? They give us just an objective space to start to look at, all right, what's the information? How's my body interpreting this? Doesn't matter how I'm interpreting it, but what's the feedback? And so it's this beautiful place between clinician and client, right? So it's the what happens at the visit, but I call it what happens at the visit beyond the visit. What are those micro moments in between? And so we do teach all of this at both of our educational platforms because it's critical to understand, great, we're putting a new input into the system, but is it moving us in the direction that we want or in the opposite? And we
Yep.
need measurements to look at that. So it's critical.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
remember we were talking at A4M. We did that little video interview, if you remember, and we
I
were
do.
talking about some of the ways that we can measure biological age and
Mhm.
longevity and health span and lifespan. And you
Yeah.
asked me a really profound question. You said, "Are we already in an era where we can potentially start to see a lifespan that could be 20 to 40 years longer?" And the
Yeah.
profound question you asked me was, if the answer to that question is yes, let's just take it as a thought exercise. How does that change how you map out the rest of your life?
Yeah.
It completely changes your calculus. You have opportunities to embark on a whole nother career in that. You have just
Yeah.
different ways to think about how you plan your finances, your life, what you want to accomplish, what you can accomplish. Like
Yeah.
those to even just engage in that thought exercise was really profound. So I remember that conversation, and I think a lot of it is relevant to what we'll be talking about here today.
Yeah, and I would offer this up, and thank you for sharing that, David. I always love when we get to sit down and have time together because you said it about me, but I feel the same with you. You're just such a beautiful, heart-centered human. You are so mission driven. You're brilliant, and you're surrounded by brilliance. And you downplay that all the time. You're very you're just very humble. And when we were having that conversation, it's, I think, the moment that any of us stop and actually ask questions differently.
Yes.
We ask better questions, we get better answers. And it's not about assuming that we're asking the wrong questions. It's sometimes just, I like to call it shaking the dirt off the roots so that we can have new perspectives and look from different angles at what is possible. Because, like it or not, we have all been indoctrinated into a system, into an ideology from marketing, from education, from parents, from media, from all the different inputs, that life is linear, it looks a certain way, and at certain times different things happen. And even as healthcare providers, too often I hear the healthcare providers say, oh, you're just getting old, like this is just signs of aging. It's like, no, 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 you don't understand it. Aging is actually optional. We begin aging the moment we are conceived, yet what we equate with aging, this decline, this breakdown, this dysfunction in the system, doesn't have to happen in the way that we have come to know it. It can look different, we can express differently, and the human system has such limitless potential. But we've been beating the drum of the problem for so long. And if we're willing to take a moment and look from the other side of that same coin, what might we see differently? And one of the questions I asked myself early on, because I really got into longevity, really studying it, wrote a book, best-selling book, and Dr. Gus helped to contribute to that as well. But I really started getting into it about 10 years ago. And And I'll save the whole long story as to the back why. But it was one night at the dinner table. I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, it's not how long do we want to live? Because we can play games like, oh, yeah, everybody's talking about 150 and 180 and 220. We can throw out these random numbers. And that might sound interesting or it might even be a big media buzz. But what's like, okay, but wait a minute. Do I want to live that long? Because some people are like, well, I could be optimized and I could be biohacking and I could be doing the things, but everybody else that I love might not be. And then that might get lonely.
Mhm.
So the question is, if you could live as long as you want to, as well as you want to, doing what you love with the people that you love, then how long would you want to live? And then what would your life begin to look like? And if we start to expand that field of possibility, and then what you and I did is then I'm like, now we get to backcast. So from wherever that endpoint is, if that does become a possibility, which we're living in the time which it is now possible, and you look to where you're at now versus where you could be, if you could have another 60, 70, 80 years, do you want to keep doing the things you're doing today? And this is not just for us as an exercise, but this is an exercise we get to do with our clients and patients because it is very profound. And all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, maybe I will walk more. Maybe I will sleep more. Maybe I'll laugh more. Maybe I'll connect more. All of a sudden it just starts to create more of a what if curiosity.
I loved that way of looking at things, and it was just a
Yeah.
fun conversation and really just an interesting exercise that you can do. I love the way you put it. How long would you want to live if you could live with the health span, the passion, the people that you want to surround yourself with, and then work backwards from that. So
Yeah.
anyhow, I still remember that conversation we had at A4M because you threw a curveball at me and it stuck with me. So
Um,
um, anyhow,
okay.
thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank
Uh,
you.
so just quick intros. I'm Dave Korsunski. I'm the founder CEO here at Heads Up. Also with me, Dr. Lemansky. John, you want to say a quick hello?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Dave. Thanks to everybody who's joining us. Really excited for this talk. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, Dr. Melissa. So, I think we're definitely in a time where, peptides have been around for a long time, but I think, especially in the United States, it's becoming more mainstream. But I do think
Yeah.
there needs to be a framework around how you use them. So hopefully we can kind of dive into that a little bit more. My role at Heads Up is the chief medical officer, just focused on bringing a product to market that really allows clinicians to track their patients and provide excellent care with real-time data.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. And we have several other brilliant experts here to help answer questions for us in the chat. So Chuck is in the chat. He's our expert on all things wearables. He also is known internally as Inspector Gadget because at any moment in time, he's wearing between 3 and 10 different wearables, but he tests everything. He lives and breathes the subject matter. So Chuck is in the chat and able to answer questions. And I'll ask Dr. Mike and Dr. Gus just to do a quick intro, and they'll also be available for questions in the chat as we go through the webinar. Mike, you want to start us off?
Hey everybody, nice to see everybody here. It's outstanding. We have 430 as we speak people and participants in this. That's outstanding. My name is Dr. Michael Wax. I'm the co-founder of Peptide University with Dr. Melissa. And I am excited to not only be here, but just kind of support everybody in their quest for wellness and health. And just like Dr. John just mentioned a moment ago, there's got to be some parameters and data around everything we're doing. And with Dr. Melissa's background and expertise and the other folks here, I think we're going to achieve some of that today. So I'll see you guys in the chat, and I'll be asking for great questions. So those that provide those great questions, I'm keeping track of those names. So here we go.
Thanks, Mike. Dr. Gus, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Dr. Gus Vickery, and I have a clinic in Asheville, North Carolina. I work closely with Dr. Petersen with both Human Longevity Institute and Peptide University. And I have been practicing medicine for 23 years. I started as a family medicine physician, kind of old school hospital emergency departments, clinics. But eventually, as my practice matured, migrated into this space of precision medicine. Some might call it functional medicine, health optimization, mostly not out of a decision, like a demarcation point where I'm like, I'm going to stop doing this and do this. It was really just what the population of people I was managing needed if they were going to begin to experience better health and begin to, reverse diseases. And, a lot of them, of course, weren't going to go as deep as peptides and metabolomics and all of this, but just still being able to help them find a way to reverse metabolic dysfunction, stabilize arterial disease, improve their overall sense of well-being. But in the last 7 years, my practice has primarily been focused working with the smaller clientele, doing the deeper work, using the various technologies we have to assess a human system in more detail, and then basically working with them, running the experiments, using everything from nutraceuticals and various molecules and lifestyle interventions and biohacks and pharmaceuticals when appropriate and peptides to see what we can do to improve their system and both subjectively and objectively. And I've been working with peptides in my clinic for about 7 years now, using a lot of the different peptides that we might discuss today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We're grateful to have you guys available to help answer questions as we go through, and I'll bring you guys back on towards the end as we announce the winners of the giveaways. So let me just put you guys on the attendee roll, and we'll keep rolling here. So we like to do giveaways here at Heads Up. It's just our thing. We don't have any affiliate relationship with any of these companies. We just love the products. So we'll be giving away an Aura Ring. And we did a couple webinars recently on the vagus nerve and on heart rate variability. And the HeartMath device is one of the OG devices out there around breath work and respiratory rate and coherence and heart rate variability. So we're giving away one of their new devices. And then also the True Vega, they were one of the sponsors on our last webinar for vagus nerve stimulation, one of their clinical devices. And I was on a business trip a couple months ago, and I met this incredible woman who is Peruvian descent, and she is personally sourcing the highest quality cacao that she's able to find on the planet directly from Peru. It's all tested for heavy metals and any kind of third-party contaminants. It's just the cleanest, most delicious, wonderful cacao I'd ever tasted. So we'll also be giving away some samples of her product, but I put this in my morning coffee now every single day. I love it. She was just an amazing human, and we wanted to help bring her small business to life. So we'll also be offering up some of her incredible cacao for one lucky winner today. So those are some of the prizes. Just a bit about Heads Up. I know many of our customers are on here, but what we really want to do is help answer the hard questions in the data. And when you're stepping into this world of longevity and health optimization and chronic disease management, the data just gets messy and it gets nasty. It's in EHRs and patient portals and PDF files and rings and phones, and it's very hard to synthesize one picture of an individual's health. And that's where we spend all of our time, is gluing all of this data together in a user experience where the patient and the provider have one shared space to look at the numbers together and follow the journey together. And that's as relevant to peptides as it is to any other health journey. So that's a bit about Heads Up. For our existing customers on the line, I did want to let everybody know that we've just put the finishing touches on our integration with Serbo and our integration with Elation. So those are new EHRs on the support matrix. We can pull all of the diagnostics out of those EHRs and bring them into the central space. We also just added a new at-home hormone testing device for the ladies called Mira, which allows for real-time testing at home of various hormone levels. And we did a webinar a couple months ago with Dr. Kayla, and it was all around women's health and fertility, perimenopause, menopause. Mira's bringing at-home testing to the table for hormones, so that device is now integrated, and then also the in-body professional scales. So if you're using in-body in clinic, those scales will now integrate to the Heads Up platform. So if you're an existing Heads Up customer and these integrations are relevant for you, just reach out to us and we can help get those set up for you. And then we're going to do our first polling question here. This just helps us learn a little bit more about you and where you're from and how we can be most helpful to you. So I'm going to launch the first question here just to help us get a better sense of our audience. And also there's a question about which peptides you're using today in practice. That can be helpful for us as we go through, and just a bit about your business in general. So I'll leave that up here for a moment. And then I will shut up and get out of the way and turn it over to Melissa. Melissa, I'm going to ask you to share your screen here. Are you ready for that?
All right. I am.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and it's all you.
Okay. Are you seeing it?
We got you.
Great. Oh, let's see here. Ready? Oop, 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 oop. Never mind. All right, everybody. I'm going to go through a few of these. I'm going to take a look at the time. Dave, I just love your voice. It feels so soothing, and it's raining here now. And I'm like, oh, I just kind of want to have and cacao and coffee, and it just feels
We
warm
could
and
go all
fuzzy.
day on this, Melissa, on this webinar. If somebody doesn't reel us in, we could easily
We
just
could, you guys.
wax
We
on for
could.
hours. Yeah.
So that's the one thing. I love to talk, and we call them Melissa monologues. So I'm going to just start and I'm going to roll and I'm going to cook. Now I'm going to do my best not to go too fast. I do want you to know, I believe I'm seeing that this is being recorded. I'm sure Heads Up Health is going to make a replay available in some way, form, or fashion. We'll let you know how to, anything you're not getting here, we'll make sure there's lots of links of how you can get in touch with us to go deeper dive into any of the information that we are about to share. But as we get started, I've got to give you a quick disclaimer. Okay, so Peptide University, we are an educational platform. Today, I'm here representing Peptide University, and I'm really grateful for Heads Up Health having me here as a guest educator. So, all of the content I'm about to share is for educational and informational purposes only, right? Does not constitute medical advice or product endorsement. And so, all of our faculty and guests that are here also in the chat, we're not delivering medical advice. We're not acting in the role of your doctor. I always have to say all this good stuff. And so let's go ahead and begin now that housekeeping has been done, right? You got to meet my amazing team. And what I love about Peptide University, it's not the Melissa, Gus, or Mike show. We are an incredible community of some of the top leaders in this field of small molecules, regenerative and longevity medicine. We've got a in-depth adjunct faculty group that are just some of the top in class and growing every day. So we're really proud of what we're building, what we're doing, and we're so glad you guys are here. We're going to actually cover a lot today, kind of why the demand, understanding what peptides are and what they're not, how they can fit into your clinical practice if you're not using them, and if you are using them, how you could potentially use them even more effectively. We're going to touch on the legal landscape and compliance. There's so much going on, you all, and I could do a whole class just on that. Why education is essential, and we really do need a framework for proper use, timing, dosage, etc. We'll explain why, how to use these from foundational health and healing all the way up to optimization, main categories of use, practical application, data tracking, and I've got a really interesting case study. So here we go. So, you guys know it. You're here. I've been looking in the chat. Some of you are already using these. You've been using them for a while. Many of you are brand new. And we know now more than ever there is a growing demand for these small molecules. And we're seeing really an evolution in healthcare, right? At the beginning, I called this healthcare 3.0. We are moving away from managing that pill with an ill and just truly sickness management. We understand that we're in a time where we've got more available to us than ever before so that we can actually correct. We can correct, we can heal, and we can begin to optimize the system. And this is really the hallmarks of longevity medicine, regenerative medicine. And so peptides are the molecule that help to bridge this gap because they are natural. They are made in the body. They're, endogenously made. And of course, when we're talking about what we're going to look at today, we're taking them exogenously, but we're using these and considering these to improve patient outcomes because we can deliver safe, effective solutions that support these corrective, healing, rejuvenation, and optimization results across various systems of the body. And it really gives you something, another kind of tool in your tool belt that can help you to build trust with cutting edge protocols while actually increasing practice profitability. So as we continue to make this evolution in healthcare, you're seeing that more and more is out of pocket. And it's no longer just exchanging dollars for hours, but people really do want correction. They want results. They want to experience health, not just the treatment of problems. And so when we start to talk about expressing health, more and more of that is actually not covered by insurance. And so understanding how you can start to make the shift, how you can have a hybrid practice, how you can go totally cash practice. These are things that myself, my entire team have done. We've all built and run successful insurance, hybrid, and full cash practices. So these are things that we teach about over at Peptide University. From molecules to clinical models, when to use peptides in clinical practice. So you've heard me already kind of tee this up. So think about it. 3 out of every 4 people, unfortunately, due to the statistics that are going to come into our clinical practice, already are in some state of dysfunction on their path to disease. 3 out of every 4, which means phase 1 is foundational functional healing protocols, right? This is where we are supporting everything from recovery, immune function, system balance, detoxification. Like we're dealing with the problems in phase 1. Phase 2, often I'll show kind of a graph of what I like to call the health continuum. So if we think that on the left side of this health continuum is really where we are in that state of breakdown, dysfunction, disease, as we come back to center, that's more of our homeostatic state. And as we move over to the right, that's when we're really getting into that optimization phase. So phase 2, think of it like we're kind of coming back to homeostasis. This is about stabilization. This is where we start to really focus on resilience, focusing on metabolic efficiency, hormonal balance, cellular repair. We want to stabilize and balance the system. And then really phase 3 is when we get into optimization, peak performance, right? We are going for longevity, we're going for peak function and aesthetic enhancements. So how we start to look at peptides is going, okay, they can work across every phase of clinical care. They are not just relegated to one siloed dimension. We can use them in a multitude of ways. We can use the same molecule in a multitude of ways. And what you're going to learn is that these peptides, they are short chains of amino acids. They are 2 to 50 units. They're amino acids bonded together. They are naturally produced in the body. And the body already has over 300,000 distinct peptides encoded in our DNA, and they are dynamically generated through protein processing. Now, these biological signaling messengers, and they are signaling messengers. So when these peptides are bonded, think of them like a specific key to a lock. And what they're going to do is they are going to sit on a cell receptor and they are going to signal. Okay, now a peptide, they're amino acids, but they can have multiple jobs. They can be enzymes, they can be hormones. They are signaling molecules that typically are pleiotropic, meaning they do multiple things and they can affect multiple pathways and multiple systems in the body. And so this actually adds to their ability to regulate just about and work within just about every system of the body. So from immune function to tissue repair, cognition, and hormonal signaling. So think of your peptides as pleiotropic. They're naturally occurring. They are safe. And so here's one point I want to make to you guys. They're incredibly safe. The safety profile is extreme. They are, when we make a synthetic peptide, we're just still putting amino acid bonds together. Like we're just putting, it's code. All this is code, very specific code, amino acids. When you take an herb is not amino acids that's naturally made in the body. We can look and say that when you're doing the exact structure a peptide is much safer than even some of the things that we call natural medicine. And again, the safety profile because it is natural to the body. Now, a bioregulator is an even smaller class of peptides. So they are 2 to 4 units in length of amino acids, and they are slightly different because a bioregulator, and we're not going to cover these too much today, but just because you're probably hearing about these, the two play well, really, they play well together. The bioregulator is targeted. So a peptide, pleiotropic. We're going to do bigger things across multiple systems. A bioregulator is tissue, organ, gland specific. It's going to get right into a specific tissue. It's not going to sit on the cell. It's going to go in the cell, and it's going to actually help to regulate gene expression and normalize bodily functions at the cellular level. Bioregulators are incredibly reparative and regenerative. So when any of you out there thinking longevity and you're thinking longer care plans, you're thinking, all right, I start with somebody in foundational health. And like when I say we're going to use these same molecules in different ways over different courses of time, we're going to start in one phase, but it doesn't end when they come back to homeostasis and they're symptom free. When you get somebody symptom free, you are just beginning on how you're actually able to create greater states of health in that human system. And so these molecules can be used in across every version of these timelines. So this is not all inclusive, but when we really look at the main molecules, the most widely studied, the most commonly used, they fall into several key areas of use. So this is how we're going to think about it today, just so we can move through in an efficient way. And from a clinical standpoint, whatever your area of expertise is, you can kind of hone in based on your patient and client population, the results that you help to achieve, the conditions that are presenting. So I would just want you to kind of look, and you're going to let that beautiful reticular activating system in your own brain kind of pop open to say, let me pay attention to the things that are the needle movers, because I want you to be able to walk away from this time together today with not just information, but I want you to understand what you can do, how to actually begin to implement what you're learning today. So our big kind of main categories are going to be repair and recovery. And these are not all the molecules, just so you know, this is not all inclusive. We're just touching the tip of the iceberg here today. All right, repair and recovery, we're going to look at things like BPC 157, TB 500, growth hormone fragments. We're going to go into immune modulation and inflammation. So everybody out there dealing with all the autoimmunity, we're going to spend some time in this category. Thymosin alpha 1, KPV, BPC, LL37. Metabolic health and performance. Now, this is the area that has actually been the reason why all of your clients and patients are coming in saying, Doc, what's a peptide? How can I get some peptides? Where are some peptides? This is why over the last 2 years, we have all started to go, I got to learn about peptides. Now, peptides didn't come on the scene 2 years ago, but because of the popularity of the GLPs getting stronger and stronger and stronger because of the recategorization back in 2023 of certain peptides, they started to really make the news, right? And so, but it started in this category. And this is also the area that peptides really, the early adopters to peptides are the bodybuilders. So this stuff has been around in the gyms for a very, very, very long time. All the N of oneers, and then the biohackers started to adopt. But this is kind of the main category of what really has catapulted them. There's far greater uses, not only metabolic. And next, we're going to look at cognitive health and mood. We're going to go into sexual health, longevity, and beauty.
Hey,
So
Melissa,
yes, my friend.
couple questions just to keep it spicy here. So,
Okay.
can you speak to safety in the context of dosage? There was a question that came in on that.
Yes. Okay. So here's how I'm going to answer that. First and foremost, we are really in the era of personalized precision medicine. So when we talk about dosing, what we teach at Peptide University, we are going to teach your standard clinical guidelines of dosing, what we know in the research. But then we tell you how to look at that and determine if that's what you need or not. Now, we all have had patients out there that are hypersensitive, right? So it doesn't matter if you're using a supplement, if you're using a peptide, if you're using a pharmaceutical, if you're using an herb, when you're going to take something new, even the piece of technology, you take a new input into a system. Whatever you decide as a clinician to input for your protocol, you have to know where are they at, Where are they going? How did they, what have they brought to the table? What is their health history? Right? What current conditions? What are they on? What are their environmental toxins overloads? Basically, how overloaded is this current system? Is it mild, moderate, severe in case complexity? Right? Are they optimized? Are they really sick? Are they dealing with chronic mold, Lyme? So how do they present? You have to first know, how's your patient presenting? You got to do a good workup. You're going to have to look at markers. And so then you're also looking at, are they on 20 things? Right? Are they on 20 different medications? Is like, are they already on, especially when we start to talk about immune for a moment? If somebody's been on biologics, if they have had their immune system suppressed, we're not going to go all of a sudden and just dose them up high on thymosin alpha 1 and immune modulators that are going to wake up that system. They're going to feel like crap and crash out. So the simple answer is there are standard guidelines for all of this, but you are still, and we teach you how to put that clinical cap back on over at Peptide University. And we're always walking you through, where are they at versus where do you want to get them? Why did they come into you? And what are you starting with? So always think of foundational health principles first. If the system is overloaded, I'm not going to go throw 20 more things on. What, if anything, do we need to reduce or remove? One of the things that we teach in depth, and Dr. Gus just did a master class on this last week, is before we start adding a ton of peptides in, we have to make sure that the cell is healthy and actually able to really do what we need it to do with the peptide. So it seems like a simple question, but it's actually, there's so much complexity that can go into that
Completely.
because
Yep.
it really depends on how the patient presents.
Awesome. Thanks, Doc.
Yeah. Okay. Let's keep on moving. But great question. I'm so glad it got
Yeah,
asked out of the
I'll
gate.
pluck one out every now and then, just as we
Keep
go,
me on my
and we
toes.
can keep rolling. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So let's go into repair and recovery. Any of us, every day we are above ground, we are breaking down, right? So when we think about soft tissue, our muscles, our tendons, our ligaments, we go to the gym. This doesn't have to just be for orthopedists and physical therapists and chiropractors and, people really doing musculoskeletal work. This is for all my biohackers out there, for all of my fitness trainers out there. It's anybody that's dealing with clients that have healing tissue damage. You're looking to modulate inflammation, accelerate recovery. We're going to think about using this category of molecules post-op. We can also use some of it pre-op, okay? But we're thinking post-op for sure. Musculoskeletal injuries, chronic inflammation, gut repair. Any kind of soft tissue repair is what we're thinking about in here. So the first one is BPC 157. It is your gateway peptide, body protective compound. It is going to accelerate tissue regeneration, angiogenesis, and gut lining repair. Now, again, gang, what I want you to know is I'm giving you just the tip of the iceberg. When you come into Peptide University, each one of these molecules, you're going to get a full master class on. I'm going to go in deep into the mechanisms of actions. We're going to talk pathways. We're going to talk contraindications. We're going to talk best practices, when to use, when not to use, why to use. I really want you to feel confident as a clinician with these molecules. But for today, we don't have time for all that. So I want you to understand the concept so you can start to feel comfortable of, oh, this is where this fits. I also want to reiterate that these are signaling molecules. They are naturally occurring. The way a signal emits in the body, it doesn't turn on and stay on 24 hours a day. When these get activated, when these are needed, these are signaled in pulsatile doses. They are signaled with specific events or specific times of the day. Many signaling molecules in our body are directed by circadian rhythms, the 24-hour light dark cycle that's really driving a lot of hormonal responses. So please remember these key phrases: signal, pulse. They're not on 24/7. And so time of day when we use these, amount of when we use these, like there's a science and an art to leveraging and using peptides in your clinical practice. So TB500 is thymosin beta 4. Now, these are kind of the same, but they're slightly different because there's a different fragment. And so thymosin beta 4 is going to really be good with reducing fibrosis. They both work to enhance cellular repair, reduce fibrosis, improve mobility. Something that's really interesting about thymosin beta 4 is there's a lot of data around cardiovascular and also kidney function and health. And so we don't have time to get into long haul COVID and things like that today, but some of these molecules become really key players when we are looking at some of these long-term chronic fibrotic conditions that have been plaguing the body. Another thing for repair and recovery, and we're going to talk about growth hormone in two different categories, but one of the nice things is we can look at growth hormone fragments. So AOD 9604, that's going to support more collagen synthesis, tissue remodeling. CJC 1295, ipamorelin, that's going to really impact IGF-1 levels. That's going to be more anabolic. We're going to get more, kind of muscle stimulation there with that. So that's used a little differently. We tap into more of that in the metabolic section. But what I do want you to know is with AOD 9604, even it's a really, really great fat a fat metabolizer. So it's going to help to reduce inflammation and burn fat, real simply said. Okay. Next category, immune modulation and inflammation. And again, this is the area that we are all dealing with to a greater or lesser extent. For any of you out there, you got female patients. Unfortunately, what the data shows us is that women, they suffer from 80% of all autoimmune conditions. And then I already tapped on it, long haul COVID. We start to look at some of these pro-inflammatory states that are just, creating these raging fires. Now, when we think about inflammation, one of the things that we teach clinically, especially at Human Longevity Institute, is we teach from upstream to downstream. So really what's above even inflammation, metabolics are going to drive this immensely. So it's always, what are the inputs? What's happening in the outer world that's signaling, informing, and influencing an expression, a physiological response or expression in the inner world of our body, right? So there's a lot of things that can drive inflammation. We know that. It's not just autoimmune. But if we think that once there is, and as we chronologically age, there's an additional driver to immune imbalance and a pro-inflammatory environment, because what happens as we get into our later 20s, early 30s, is that our thymus gland begins to involute. And your thymus gland is really what helps to kind of modulate and regulate the two sides, your innate and adaptive immune responses. And so it's just driving us into a more pro-inflammatory state. It's kind of pushing the gas. And so we're trying to always clean up, clean up, clean up, and we don't modulate the immune system, just like the autonomic nervous system. Fight or flight, rest and digest. It's supposed to modulate. We're supposed to go see the foreign invaders and go attack and get really aggressive and then clean it up and come back and just chill until the next one comes in, and then go attack and clean it up and come back and chill. And yet, as we chronologically age and we lose that proper modulation, now we're just more hypervigilant all the time. And so we really start to lose our capacity to have a healthy immune response and recovery. So you're thinking about these molecules with autoimmunity, chronic infection, immune rebalancing, clinical scenarios, obviously, of all the multitude of autoimmunes. Where do we typically start with autoimmune? Gut, right? How many of you are doing clinical protocols that if you want to bring down those fires, you are working on gut first? Chronic viral infections, cancer support. Oftentimes we know there's a huge correlation with when we are really kind of looking at what we love to call leaky gut, right? AKA gut permeability. The proper technical term is that chronic stress, bad diets, dysbiosis, all the things that wear down that proper gut integrity. And we have those leaky junctions, more of the crappy toxins, foods, everything else gets out into that bloodstream that's not supposed to be there. So why do we go to gut protocols first? Because we're trying to clean up that inner terrain. If we can't help that terrain stabilize, it's like we're always just putting gas back on the fire, right? So what I want you to think about here is when we're thinking gut, so I'm going to jump a little out of order. BPC, that's actually made in the gastric juices. And so you can take BPC orally. It's going to strengthen the gut barrier. It's going to support mucosal immune resilience. KPV, I like to stack these together. So when I've got autoimmune, I'm going to always start with 9 times out of 10 BPC, KPV, because it's a potent anti-inflammatory. It's going to regulate gut immune access. It's antibacterial. It's really, really working, with that overall kind of gut flora. But I will tell you that depending on what you're dealing with and the level of dysbiosis, and I had it happen with a client recently that they were already in such a state and they went a little people another doctor and I were talking the other day. Our clients think a little is good, a lot must be better,
Hmm.
right? How many of you have this? And so this particular individual took additional doses of the KPV and then couldn't understand why she had such terrible diarrhea. And I'm like, okay, we're cleaning the terrain. Low and slow, low and slow, low and slow. And this kind of comes back to dosing, right? Like you've got to understand how they're presenting, what you're dealing with. And before I start just flooding the system with peptides, I want to clean up the environment. What can I reduce and remove? How can I get in there and stabilize cellular function? And then I'm going to start to layer these additional molecules on. So I don't like to throw the kitchen sink at patients because depending on who I'm dealing with, I could create more of an overload to their system and shut them down even faster. So I'm the type of practitioner that I like to under promise, over deliver. I'm a huge advocate, and you're going to see one of my case studies is a 12-month. I'm a huge proponent of 12-month care plans. I came from the era of 3-month and 6-month programs, and you charge them X amount of thousands of dollars, and you do the thing, and they're coming in for the problem, and you're going to take them through all this, all the functional medicine really quick and take them through and do the detoxes, do all this stuff. And they're doing it and they're doing it and they're drinking from the fire hose, but it's not sustainable. They feel like crap and they're doing it because they don't want to not feel like crap anymore. But then they're losing, you know what I mean? So it's like, wait a minute. These people have real lives. They're already overloaded. Their systems are crashed out. They've got people and family and responsibilities. And they're going to do what you need them to do, but how much of it is sustainable? And so when you go with a 12-month protocol, you are going to get much better adoption. You're going to set much better expectations. They're not going to crash and burn. They're going to make, and you just, it's so beautiful the way you see these 90-day sprints and these wins. And this is how we're cycling in these different phases of protocols and molecules. So these are things we teach you about in Peptide University. Thymosin alpha 1 is your immune modulator. So especially now, if we're not already on some type of biologic, that's impeding immune function, and we just want to be proactive and we want to support, slow down the rate and pace of biological aging. We want to support thymic health. We can bring in thymosin alpha 1 if they're on, Stellara, they're on something like the immune system's already been shut down. We are not just going to jolt this in because it will wake up the system and they could become very symptomatic. So these are things we have to understand the molecules. We have to understand what to expect. And we have to do informed consent with our clients and patients, like we would with any type of molecule or any type of treatment. Because if they know it's coming, they're not going to be afraid. But if you don't tell them what to expect and how to report back into you or track their data and understand what they're seeing, they're going to think this is bad, this is wrong, this is not working. They're going to want their money back. They're going to freak out. They're going to leave bad reviews, all of it. So communication is key for not only your own practice success, but enhanced clinical results and outcomes with the clients that you serve. LL37 is a broad spectrum antimicrobial. It reduces inflammation, aids in tissue repair. It is phenomenal with biofilms, but it's not the one you start with. You don't want to start with that one first. That's pretty strong. We want to do a lot of cleanup before we bring that one in. All right,
Question,
moving on.
Melissa, just
Yes, sir.
to keep it spicy here. So, a couple questions came in on the oral versus the injectables, and I'm seeing more that are available in
Yeah,
capsule form. I know you touch on this later when you get into the regulatory
yeah.
framework of things, but just any quick comments on what you're seeing in terms of um, more peptides becoming available as oral and how they might be used differently. I know that we might be a lot there, but just quick comments on the differences between the two and use cases and application.
Absolutely. As of right now, there's a few companies that are doing orals really well, but it's still a small catalog because
Got it.
again, these beautiful peptides, they're very fragile and delicate. Even when you do sub Q, Like if you put the backwater in too fast, you can start to degrade it. If you don't have it in the right temperature, it's going to degrade. It's like they break down quickly. And when we take them, they're not active very long in the system. Like they're short-lived. And so some oral have time release systems, right? So they'll stay a little longer, but usually they're from minutes to hours in the system, and then they're done, then they're out. And so you're not going to have crazy side effects for a really long period of time, right? If you have something aberrant, you have them stop, wash it out, give it at least 3 days, bring it back down, right? And then go a lower dose and you can titrate up. But where we're at right now, most of the molecules that we're talking about are best delivered by a subcutaneous injection. There is a small classification that have good oral delivery systems, but it is really kind of, I'm telling you, this is the area because, and we will talk about it in the regulation, but because of the regulations, because of the categorizations and everything that's going on, more and more companies are saying, how can we get safe, effective delivery forms? So delivery forms are what everybody's working on. And there are a few companies out there. There's a company I love, they're very well known in the industry, that they just like a month or two ago, just released a bunch of oral liposomal delivery forms.
I've seen some of
Doc,
these.
yeah, Dr. Wax and I, we consult, and actually does that, as does Dr. Vickery, but I sit on boards and I consult with multiple companies out there. So we're able to see a lot of really innovative tech. I actually have an isotonic patch on right now. It's literally, I did a little video on it today. So I've got a patch delivery system and it's a medical device. So it's literally like pulsing in once an hour. There's uh, there's some transdermal things that are a little iffy. There's a spray method coming out that's got over 22 patents. So there is a lot coming out. You're going to see more and more in 2026 and beyond.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's keep going because this is the area that most of you want to know things about. And I already saw some questions popping up in the chat about, weight loss and metabolic health and all of the things for different protocols. And I will tell you, we do deep dives into protocols over at Peptide University, and we do master classes on them. Twice a month, you get to sit down with Dr. Gus, myself, and the team, and we do case studies, we do protocol reviews. So that's really part of what we do because we are a peer-to-peer community, and it means so much to us. We don't want you just to have information and try to have to figure it out. We want you to come in and we want you to sit down and talk to us, and we want to be able to help you put your clinical cap on and think through it and feel really supported in the process. But this is the big area. So we're thinking weight loss, insulin sensitivity, muscle preservation, recovery performance. Any of you that are doing longevity and regenerative medicine, these molecules move the needle. 3 out of 4 of you are dealing with the patient that walks into your practice is in some form of metabolic insufficiency. 3 out of every 4. So all of you need some level of something in this category, and or your patients are coming in on something, right? So for those of you that are maybe non-prescribers, I'm sure most of your patients coming in that would fall in this range are already, if they're obese, metabolic syndrome, sarcopenia, mitochondrial dysfunction, any of that, they're probably coming in on a GLP-1. Now, this is the rage. This is where a lot of the heat is. This is where there's so much happening because of this with big pharma and FDA. But here's what you want to know. There's semaglutide, that's your Ozempic, that's your Wegovy. Your tirzepatide, that's your Mounjaro. Retatrutide isn't officially out through big pharma yet. It is out through research use only. It goes single, double, triple agonist. They do different things. That gets better, and better yet. But overall, they're going to help to suppress appetite, improve glycemic control, reduce inflammation, enhance metabolic resistance. They're going to really improve insulin sensitivity. They help with food noise. They are doing some phenomenal things. I am a huge advocate of GLPs. I think there's been a lot of fear mongering around them falsely. However, I will also say this. There has been a lot of dosing, like the dosing starts low and goes super high. People have been dosed up to the highest and kept on it at the highest amount, and it's not necessary, but they work in a specific standard range for specific reasons. There's a lot that we can do from a lower dose. We like to look and say, what's the lowest dose, right, to get the most effective clinical outcome? And so it's always think low and slow. So we use a lot of microdosing. Some people are countering that term. It's just meaning you're going with the smallest dose. And a microdose, really kind of clinical standards are taking a quarter of the standard dose. So you're doing about a quarter of what the standard would be. So you're doing a smaller amount. And we talk about, especially with GLPs, if you're getting research use only, and we'll hopefully have some time to talk about that. If it's not coming from prescription, you have to realize that the Ozempics and everything from pharma has been engineered in a way. Why do you think you can take it once a week? It's been engineered in a way to have a longer shelf life, half life in the body. When we take these things, just the pure molecule that hasn't been, right, like kind of made in the lab over there, it doesn't last as long. It breaks down a lot quicker. So doing a smaller dose multiple times a week, we get a much better outcome, lower side effects, greater results,
That makes
and
sense.
it's really quite impressive. Yes, Dave.
No, I was just agreeing with you on the
Oh, okay. So, okay.
spreading it
Uh,
out when you're microdosing, especially if you're using the
yeah.
non-pharma versions, I guess is the way to say it.
Yes. Yeah. And listen, now and especially if you're in the optimized range, like I microdose. Like so, and if you've got anybody like I take when I tell you I microdose, I mean I'm doing the tiniest of the time. I'm doing like really a tenth of the dose. I'm not even doing a quarter of a dose. And I am it has such a response in my body, but I'm very optimized metabolically. I don't need the same amount, and I'm not trying to get the same response as a patient who we might need to help lose 50 pounds. We're doing a very different dosing
Yep.
schedule based on how we're using it, right? So it's always where are we at? Where do we want to go? For what reason are we thinking about these molecules? Okay, next up, 5-amino-1-MQ, not technically a peptide. It is a molecule that's going to inhibit NNMT to increase NAD intracellularly. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm actually not a huge fan because I don't think the research is there with exogenous NAD. Okay, there's different camps. I'd rather take an NAD precursor like an NMN, right, or an NR. But what I love about 5-amino-MQ is it does increase, it makes more NAD inside of the cell. And that's what we want. Okay, we want more NAD for a whole lot of reasons, for longevity, for our sirtuins, for energy production. It's going to promote fat loss. It's going to preserve lean muscle. It's going to increase ATP production. I can't get enough of 5-amino-1. It's my fave. But you do have to cycle it. You know, you're not going to stay on it forever and ever. So we usually do typically like a 60-day cycle. You could go 60 to 90 days, and then we want to come off of it. We're going to pulse it and things like that. MOTS-C. Now, this is really in our category of mitochondrial um, peptides. And so MOTS-C is going to activate the AMPK pathway. That's big for all my longevity docs out there. You understand about that. When we have mTOR, AMPK, they're nutrient sensing pathways. Think about it, you know, catabolic, anabolic type of thing, build up, tear down. But this is going to help to improve mitochondrial function, energy, fat metabolism. It's an exercise mimetic. We're going to use MOTS-C for mitochondrial health when we have metabolic dysfunction. Okay, there are other mitochondrial peptides. I'm not going into them right now. And we use some versus others at different times based on how a patient is presenting. Tesamorelin. It's a growth hormone releasing hormone analog that's going to target visceral fat. So what's really nice about tesamorelin, it does improve body composition. So we're going to get that. And what I want you to know about these, gang, is we're not giving growth hormone. We're giving the analog. It's what comes before, what helps to trigger that hypothalamus, that anterior pituitary to go knock, knock. Hello, we need a little more growth hormone out there. So it's helping to increase the signal, the precursor, if you will, to make the growth hormone. So it's very safe. And so the thing with some of these growth hormone analogs is some of them will spike IGF-1, some will spike cortisol. If you're going totally anabolic and you want that, great, but most women do not want that. If we've already got cortisol issues and other things going on, we're going to choose different molecules at different times for different reasons. Now, tesamorelin is not going to spike cortisol. It's not going to spike IGF-1. It does target that visceral fat. But you know, I actually was talked to Ben Greenfield just last week about this on his show. We were chatting because he's like, I really like to, you know, to put women on ipamorelin. And I'm just like, Well, a lot of our women love tesamorelin because of how it targets visceral fat, but I'd say it's a 50-50. Some, it targets visceral fat, but I'd say it's a 50-50. Women, for some reason, just don't seem to do as well. Men seem to do a little bit better with this one. But, this is where we get into the land of playing. Don't freak out if it doesn't do well with them. Not every molecule is the right fit for every person. We've got other things we can switch around. Okay. And next we look at CJC 1295, ipamorelin. Again, they both are going to boost growth hormone. These are going to boost IGF-1. These are great for muscle maintenance. These are great for recovery. So when we've got our athletes, out there, but gang, if you've got any professional athletes, BPC, CJC, ipamorelin, these are banned. These are banned substances. So those are things that we do talk about
Yeah, that
in
question did
the
come up,
course. Yeah,
Melissa, is would they show up on
yeah, yeah. You're not
drug
going to use
testing?
those with, yeah. And we
We
talked
also
through
did
that.
get a question, Melissa. Inquiring minds want to know, which one are you microdosing?
You know what? I'm actually not on one right now, but I actually do have CJC 1295 ipamorelin up in the fridge that I'll go ahead and do that one next. So that one is coming up soon. Just waiting. It's just waiting for me. I like to, I play with my peptides and my bioregulators. I cycle everything.
Me too.
So I'm always doing different stacks. Yeah. All right, gang. I want to be mindful of our time. It's 4 o'clock. I've got three more sections and we've got to talk regulation. So I'm gonna try to go a little faster. And I'll try to wait on questions till the end. Okay, cognitive, neuroprotective, neuroplasticity, focus, memory, anxiety, depression, clinical scenarios, neurodegenerative diseases. We're thinking TBIs, strokes, stress-related cognitive decline. We're thinking mental health when we don't want to put people on SSRIs. Like we've got a lot that we can do in this category, and or also we want to titrate them down and off any antipsychotics, any SSRIs. We want to have other options, as well as there's amazing nootropic enhancement benefits. So we just want to think better, be faster, smarter, remember more. It's in this category. Cerebrolysin, it's going to deliver nootropic factors. It's kind of a cocktail of these different growth factors, and it's going to really help to drive up BDNF, promote neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, repair, and neurodegenerative conditions. That is the one. There's so much incredible research. It's everywhere in the world except for the US. They took it away from us. I used to use this in clinical practice. Is so much research on the benefits of that molecule, and it is phenomenal. Really, really great if you've got cognitive decline, if you've had stroke, you've had TBI. It's a great one, and it's intramuscular or IV. Dihexa, potent synaptogenic compound that's going to enhance memory formation and cognitive performance. C-Lank is an anxiolytic peptide that's going to improve focus, stabilize mood, reduce stress-induced cognitive disruption. Cmax is going to support BDNF expression, nootropic neuroprotection, attention, and learning enhancement. And DSIP, delta sleep inducing peptide, is going to help to regulate sleep and is going to reduce cortisol and promote central nervous system recovery. Sexual health and reproductive function. It's really amazing. It's only a few molecules, but the way that you can use these molecules for men and women, it's actually really phenomenal. And when we look at so we're thinking libido, erectile dysfunction, and the big category is fertility. And I really want you guys to see that fertility. So we have so many fertility issues, which a lot of those are upstream metabolic issues, right? But we're looking at things that we're going to layer in. And so I love how these molecules can clean a lot of the metabolic mess upstream, help to stabilize. So if we think of those three phases, and I have somebody with fertility issues and PCOS and all the stuff coming in, we're going to first clean upstream metabolics. We're going to, in that foundational phase one, we're going to stabilize them. And then we're going to really work in the hormone department. Instead of just doing exogenous hormones, trying to come in and override the system, we want to think and work with the innate intelligence of the body. And that's what's great about peptides. They're signaling molecules. So it's not going to just dump the hormone in. It's going to say, let's signal the pathways that naturally make more of the hormone. So it's pretty phenomenal how you can use this stuff. Clinical scenarios, again, low libido, erectile dysfunction, infertility, menopause, andropause. Also, if we have delayed onset of puberty, so these can be phenomenal. Like kisspeptin is the freaking magic peptide. I swear it can do so much, whether we have delayed onset of puberty, whether we're having issues going in menopause, andropause, and or fertility. It kind of hits at all these different points along the way because it's going to stimulate really our gonadotropin releasing hormone and gonadotropin released to support fertility by way of stimulating LH and FSH. So testes in the men and testosterone, ovaries in women. It's going to help to naturally increase estrogen and progesterone production in women and testosterone in men. It's phenomenal. PT141 is going to enhance sexual arousal and libido via the central melanocortin pathways. And so what's different about this, it's not like a Viagra. It's not like a nitric oxide kind of increasing circulation to the end organ. It's actually working in the brain to go, ooh, I like that. I'm stimulated by what I'm seeing. And so it's really working in some different ways to enhance libido. Women seem to be a little bit more sensitive to this than men. And it's day of, right? And you're not going to use it more than 8 times in a month. And it usually is onset within 30 minutes, but it can create some nausea, which is the downside if you're thinking that you want to increase sexual function and you're feeling nauseous. So that's unfortunate. But oxytocin is going to promote, of course, we know that is the love drug, right? Our hugging, our bonding. We know it naturally is at heightened levels when a mother gives birth and we're holding our baby. It helps to create bonding and emotional connection. It's going to support sexual satisfaction. Dr. Stephanie Rimka, who will be doing our master class in August, she does a lot with mental health, and she actually uses oxytocin religiously with children and teens, especially when there's been severe trauma, a lot of trauma, and there's been
Oh,
a lack of
interesting.
bonding.
Wow.
So it's not, so these molecules are not just all
Therapy
about
use
sex,
case.
right? We're thinking, oh, sorry, I'm hearing something. So we're
Yeah, that
thinking
was a
about some
therapy
different
use
ways.
case, Melissa, you're talking about there with oxytocin, then it sounds like therapeutic in
Yeah,
terms of just trauma related
absolutely.
stuff. Wow.
And what I love, and she'll talk about this next month. So you guys can, when you go to our website, and the team will put some, Heads Up Health has some special links for you guys. They'll drop in the chat. But when you go over there once a month, we just like they're doing a free webinar. We do a free masterclass once a month when you attend live. And so Dr. Rimka will speak in depth about this. But what I love, and she uses it with not only the children, but the parents to reestablish bonding and connection. So it's really beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Longevity and beauty, slowing or reversing biological aging, improving health span, skin and hair rejuvenation. We want preventative longevity care, cellular senescence removal, telomere support, wrinkle reduction, hair restoration, wound healing. This is the group. Epitalon, this is the OG when it comes to all things longevity, health span extension. It's going to activate telomerase. So that's going to slow down the breakdown of the end caps on your telomere. So it just helps to every time, I don't need to go into all of it, but it's just going to make sure that the cap gets put back on. So it breaks down slower and longer, which means we have more health span. So what we know is it correlates with health span, not lifespan, but we stay healthier longer than we're probably going to live longer too. It's going to promote healthy circadian signaling. And in some research, we've seen upwards of 33% increase in telomere length. We've seen it equate to as high as 7 to 9 years of health span.
Wow.
Different studies,
Awesome.
it's pretty amazing. And Epitalon does kind of it's an interesting one. It's a peptide, but there's also there's epitalin, endolutin. It's over in the bioregulator space. This has so much data because it's come out of Russia, and typically you're going to do it twice a year, usually a 10-day cycle with it. But depending on, we can do longer cycles depending on our end goal. GHK copper. I love GHK copper. It's one of my favorites because it's not just a beauty product. It does stimulate collagen, elastin, increases fibroblasts, works with DNA repair. This is great for enhancing wound healing. So I want you to think, any of you that have open wounds, if you're dealing with people that are, any kind of wound issue, we can topically apply. It's going to help to increase wound healing that way. From an aesthetic standpoint, it's reducing fine lines and wrinkles. It works with the intracellular matrix. It's kind of like the scaffolding that helps to stabilize, lift, and strengthen versus what naturally happens as it starts to break down. Um, but it can also be used in hair regeneration. So a lot of derms and med spas and things like that are doing microneedling, like they'll inject GHK copper, as they're doing different stimulation, hair follicle stimulation, things like that. OXO4 DRI, that's going to target and clear senescent cells to reduce cellular aging and inflammation. I'm all about, senescent cells, gang. They go into a zombie state. They're highly pro-inflammatory. They're not breaking down into their apoptotic state. They're not being removed and cleared. And they are sending out these little stress signals so they can stress the other cells around them. And this becomes unfortunate and problematic the longer they're there because they're just creating this high pro-inflammatory environment. And so, as we typically do in traditional medicine, we think, let's just get rid of it. Let's just get rid of them. They actually have an actual important function, and they do help with cancer. And we don't want to just get rid of all of our senescent cells. And we're actually coming into a time where we're starting to realize that certain molecules like spermidine, we're actually seeing research coming out in some preliminary studies that it can reverse senescent cells back into their healthy state. So when we want to bring down that senescent load, this would be something in longevity medicine that we are going to do potentially twice a year. There's a whole buildup. We have a whole protocol around how we're thinking about using that particular molecule, but it can be highly impactive, but you're not just taking that and doing it all the time, going, I'm just going to get rid of my inflammatory cells. No, you still need them for different things. All right, melanotan, it's the Barbie molecule, boosts melanin production. There's melanotan 1 and 2. Really, melanotan 1 is what's going to help to give you the color, not make you go totally into those purples and crazy colors, and still give you some of the health benefits. Melanotan 2, it's PT141 came from melanotan too, but there's a lot more issues. People get very sensitive to it. You get a lot of GI issues with it. You get way too dark with it. It's not as friendly for everybody. So yeah, supports overall skin vitality. So which one, how long, how much? This kind of came with one of the first questions. What about dosing? So this is where quickly we're going to put on our clinical cap. And I want you to realize that peptides will enhance your current care that you're offering. It's going to improve clinical outcomes. It's going to drive increased cash revenue centers in your business. And yet what I want you to think about, especially with the current landscape, don't go sell peptides, sell outcomes, sell programs. Use peptides as tools in your tool belts. Don't make it about the molecule. Even if you don't use peptides, gang, don't make it about the molecule because you give away the power of what you're really offering in your practices, which is supportive, transformative care, right? So step one, you guys are all consulting. And the better our intake, right? The better that history, that evaluation, that assessment, you got so much in that intake. It will get you the majority of the way there. You ask the right questions, you need fewer tests. You can ask the right questions, you can dial in biometrics, you're going to look at biomarkers, you're going to look at it depends on your type of practice and what your specialty and your scope is as to what you're going to do in your assessment. But we teach you how to look at objective and subjective markers. You're going to take all that initial data, you're going to review it, and you're going to understand where's the patient at versus where it is that they want to go. What's the actual outcome? What do we got to go through to get them there, right? Mild, moderate, severe, and complexity. So based on what we're looking to do together, then you're saying, how am I going to help to get them there, right? This is where you're going to educate them. Hey, this is what we found. We're working in these phases of care. We're going to look at our solutions. And this is where you're looking at peptides, protocols, programs to achieve those outcomes. You want to make sure you get consent, not just on peptides, but informed consent on what you're doing and how you're getting there. Implement, track, and adjust. Now, this is where Heads Up Health is they're going to make sure you're goated. They are your go-to because this is where it's the visit beyond the visit. You're doing this great initial intake. You're putting the plan together. You're handing the peptides and the tech and the treatment plans over, and then they leave. And when they leave, you're like, oh, fingers crossed. I hope they're compliant, right? what wearable technology does is it allows us to actually check in and understand in between those visits, how compliant are they? And are they being compliant and we're seeing things move in the right direction or not really in the direction we were hoping? Let's go ahead and get the coach on the phone with them to do a little check-in. Let's send a little nudge, right? It allows us to have more real time so we don't have to have these huge gaps in between and really like something that we could have done a little micro correction on weeks ago. If we don't have the tracking, if we don't have the information, if we don't know better, we can't do better. So this is really what we do in between so that we are making these little movements every day steadily forward. So when they come back in for their next visit with you, you're not starting all over again. You've got so much data and so much information, it streamlines it. Now, we really, unfortunately, you guys, don't have tons of time. I'm not going to break down all of these. If you want to take a screenshot of this, let's go. But as we think about this important, they've come in, we've evaluated, and now we are building this program. We are starting them on a protocol, right? A care plan. They leave. So if we're working in our repair and recovery, maybe the care plan is to accelerate healing, restore muscle barrier, reduce inflammation. What would we assess? Well, these are not all inclusive. We've got a variety of biomarkers that we could be looking at in our lab work, right? So we can be looking at inflammatory markers. We can be looking at creatine kinase about muscle breakdown, IGF-1, anabolic signaling. We can be looking at metabolics. We can be doing things like range of motion, pain scales, functional mobility. But what happens in the visit beyond the visit? Well, what lets us know if they're really repairing? And the key word is recovering. Now, for those of you that are using Heads Up Health and already in the lane of wearables, you know without question, many of today's devices have some level of a recovery score, right? A
Yep.
body battery. How well is the body recovering?
Mm-hmm.
And so we absolutely, what's in a word? We want to be looking at that recovery score. But what also lets us know? Well, HRV, right? How are we modulating our sympathetic, parasympathetic? How are we recovering from what our body is perceiving as stress, physical, mental, emotional, chemical, environmental? The resting heart rate, too many people forget the power of the resting heart rate. It tells us a lot about if the system is perceiving itself in a stress state. If the system is in a stress state, then it is not repairing and recovering because it's not getting deep enough into that parasympathetic, right? Rest, digest, connect. And of course, when does this happen the most? When we sleep. So if we're looking at those sleep scores and we are not seeing close to 2 hours of deep and REM combined, right? We're seeing less than 7 hours consistently. We know, and we know this genetically, like we absolutely know it, and the data is out there. I don't care what people tell you. We need 7 to 9 hours, period. End of story. We get less than 7, we get more than 9. The numbers become very, very clear. We have just 1 hour less consistently of sleep. We're getting 6 hours consistently. It is equivalent to driving under the influence, is how the brain, and I'm not making this stuff up. The data is out there and it's been out there for a very long time. So we have a small window. We need to sleep. And if we don't have good sleep structure, right? That information can tell us so much about healing, repair, and recovery. And before I do all of the other things, if I have to focus in one place, I'm focusing on sleep first. That's one of the biggest areas because I know when I can get my patients sleeping better, they're going to repair and heal and recover faster. And I don't just mean immune response. I'm talking metabolics. They're going to lose weight faster. They're going to have more energy. They're going to have better brain health. When we sleep, the lymphatic system comes on. That's when the detoxing happens. If we're not sleeping, we're not cleaning out the crap and we're not rebuilding the good stuff. Okay. All right. Measure and track if it's immune. Again, we know there's all these beautiful inflammatory markers. We know we can be looking at gut health. We can be looking at secretory IgA for gut mucosal integrity, zonulin, things like that we're thinking autoimmune, gut barrier. And again, so much of this, gang, is we're seeing the same things kind of over and over again. But I want you to realize that here's some things that we don't often think about that can tell us a lot about inflammation is temperature. What's happening with the body temperature. But guess what else can tell you a lot about inflammation, which I actually don't have on here? which is weight. When you step on that scale in the morning, and if you step, I'm not a big one to have my patients get on scales because they get way too obsessive about it. But when we are daily tracking, we can see, let's just pretend that their standard morning weight is 125 pounds. And the night before they went out, they were hanging out with friends and they drank 3 glasses of wine and they had dessert and they went to bed late, and we see their sleep scores are a mess. And the next morning, we see that their morning weight is 127. Did they really gain 2 pounds? No, they're in a pro-inflammatory state. Like we can see inflammatory patterns just on stepping onto a scale. Pretty amazing stuff. All right. Got to keep going. Measuring metabolics. Again, we know glucose, insulin, hemoglobin A1C without compromise. We want to be looking at lipid panels. We want to be looking at triglycerides. We want to be looking at insulin resistance. We want to be looking at CRP. We want to be looking at body composition. Absolutely 100%. DEXA is the gold standard. But then when we're tracking, same thing. We are looking at body comp 100% when we're looking at metabolics. But when you have somebody step on that scale every day when they're trying to lose weight, it becomes a mental mess. I typically only allow my patients to step on a scale once a week when we are doing metabolic weight loss programs. I want them looking instead at other metrics. I want them looking at their sleep. 100%. I want them looking at their steps, right? I want them looking at other markers besides weight. So just some things to think about there. Cognitive. This is a really big area. I'm going to hand out a few that you might not be thinking about. Interleukin 6, TNF alpha, pro-inflammatory cytokines associated with neurodegeneration. You might not really think about that. ApoE4. So we want to look at the ApoE genotype, and we specifically want to look to see if they have a 4 allele, because that's associated with cognitive decline, increased potential risk of Alzheimer's. However, it doesn't mean they have it. If it presents based on the types of fats, you can lower that risk even just by exercise. You can reduce the risk of expression. So just because they have it, you don't have to freak out, but it is a marker to be able to look at. The oats test can tell us a lot about mitochondrial output, neurotransmitter metabolites. I always do a lot of brain work, QEEGs. So look at brainwave imbalances, tells us a lot. You can do like Cambridge cognitive assessments. There's phenomenal cognitive assessments that you can easily track before and afters. And the in-betweens, we can start to look at HRV. Higher HRV correlates with cognitive flexibility, resilience, emotional regulation. Obviously, right? We have great stress response, sleep efficiency. REM is going to be directly tied to memory consolidation. It's super big, you guys, the role that sleep is going to play when we're thinking about brain health. And also, again, cleaning out the glymphatics, if I can get my words right. And then, let's see. All right, trying to get going. Measure and track sexual function. We know all of our hormones. We can look at those. We can also look at thyroid panels, cortisol, vitamin D, prolactin. Wearable, improved sexual function correlates with sympathetic balance when we feel safe, right? When we are resting, and it's not just rest and digest, it's rest, digest, and connect. So parasympathetics tell us a lot about overall, again, just sexual health. Resting heart rate tells us about cardiovascular readiness, cycle tracking in females, skin temperature. So in skin, skin temperature is going to tell us a lot about thyroid function, ovulation cycles. So these are some things that we don't always think about, but they're just right there and we can look at always in between. Finally, longevity and beauty. All right. So a couple that you might not be thinking of. Obviously, you're thinking about all your inflammaging, all the inflammatory things and homocysteine and all of our metabolics and lipids. Uric acid. So uric acid is a metabolic health span oxidative stress marker. We can see with vitamin D that's letting us know a lot about overall resilience and signaling pathways. Telomere length, epigenetic age. So one of the markers you're going to see really super fast refers to pheno age. There's a lot of age markers out there. You guys, I'm sure, know of True Diagnostics and their true age, and that's kind of the gold marker right now. But biological age gets a lot of heat. It really does. It's a moving target for many, many reasons. We're finding other markers, and one of the things Dr. Gus teaches about a lot is metabolomics. We're finding certain systems are really correlating in the strongest way with actual biological age. The immune system is the strongest. We're seeing so much. So it is a moving target. So I think of these, don't make it an absolute, look at it for patternization. And so if I'm looking dollar for dollar, something that's easy and it's already going to be in your basic lab profile, you can get the markers for a pheno age, and it's true age is going to give you plus or minus within a year. I think it might even be as much as 6 months now. So it's most specific as far as we understand with aging clocks. Pheno age gives you plus or minus 3. Sometimes it says 5 years. So it's not as accurate, but again, it's just showing this patternization. So HRV is one of the strongest correlators really that we see with health span, and then grip strength and gait speed, you guys. Don't sleep on grip strength. It is the strongest marker of cardiovascular health out there. It really is. So make sure you're looking at just a few of those. There's great apps now, even for face recognition and face age, that are really, really great predictors. VO2 max, recovery scores, they tell us a lot about how our body's dealing. All right. As you can see, this is so much. This is why we offer it all at Peptide University. Regulatory compliance, peptides are not supplements. They are not drugs. They are regulated differently. And 2 years ago, a bunch of them were recategorized, and it got things really messy because they're not all the same. So some are FDA approved drugs like your GLPs, like semaglutide, like tesamorelin, for example. Others are compounded. Some are for research use only, and some are sold as dietary supplements. This is what we call the gray zone. And there's a lot more going on because there's so much money that has been made with the GLPs that, money drives the whole thing. And so there is a lot that is changing rapidly within the peptide space because of the money that is being made. It is still gray. Certain things are going to be opened back up. Certain things are going to be able to be compounded again. Certain things are going to be, kind of crunched down harder on in research use only, because with research, it's like Amazon. It is the wild, wild west. There are only a few good companies out there that are doing it right. It's not even what's on the bottles in the bottle. It's what are all the excipients? Where is it coming from? Is it really what it says it is? How strong? How weak is it? What are their certificates of analysis? Do they follow good manufacturing practices? And most of them don't. Are they third party assessed and tested? Many of them don't. They've popped up everywhere. And so the reason that it's scary and risky with some of these research use only companies is because you can't even just count on a certificate of analysis, because a lot of them are showing them from years ago. They're repeating the old ones, like they're just putting something up on a website. Like it's not all actually what it says that it is. And it makes it hard for us as practitioners to suss it all out. But there is a lot of regulation coming, and the regulation isn't to try to keep us away from all of it, but to actually make it a safer space. And it is a bit of a moving target, which is also why more delivery methods are actively being pursued, so that if it's not going in by an injection, right, or an IV or intranasally, we are falling more into the supplement category. And supplements are looked at differently, even if it's the same molecule. BPC orally versus BPC injection, totally different. BPC orally, totally fine. It's a nutritional supplement. BPC injected is category 2, can't use it. You can't access it, right? Can't have it compounded. So, but whatever you do, it's great. You want to be as compliant as you can, source from licensed compounding pharmacies. If research must have third-party verified COAs and follow up GMP manufacturing practices, use informed consents, right? Disclose that these are experimental, potential risks, and also and what monitoring will be done. You don't have to be afraid of it. I used the story a few weeks ago. I had an elective procedure done that has risks associated with, like a molecule put into my body that has risks with it. But I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Thank you for telling me. I want the benefit of it. So I understand. I'm well informed. I know the risk profile is very minimal, and I'm happy to sign this off. let's go ahead and do the treatment, right? So, don't think that peptides are some strange thing. They're like every other molecule that you guys use in your practice that you're already doing informed consents on. Document protocols, don't sell peptides, sell programs and solutions. Research compound supplements, take a screenshot. I'm really sorry, I don't have time to go into all this. We are so at time. I'm happy to stay on a few minutes later, but I know like we are running late. Really quickly, complex autoimmune case. It was a year-long program. She came in a mess, 61, 5'3", very healthy, physically healthy, lean body comp, but she had rheumatoid arthritis. Her fingers were starting to get really mangled. She's like, they look ugly. A lot of it for her was a lot of vanity. And she's like, I'm losing my libido. My husband's, he's doing hormones. His is getting more. I can't have that happen. I've got no energy. I've got no libido. I'm feeling ugly. I'm looking ugly. When I look at my hands, I need to stop this and get this back together so I can feel good again, right? I want to enjoy, we're going into retirement. I want to enjoy this time with my husband. So it wasn't like there was some like just clear, it was all right there. Everything that she already presented with, it was very, very clear. But what was super interesting, she had been having her hormones monitored and done by somebody that they were old school. They just kept increasing, increasing, increasing. Her hormone levels were so off the chart. It was crazy. We actually had to bring her back down. Her pheno age was 65. And so again, we did a lot of wearables, but let me just tell you really quickly. We kind of took her in several phases. Step one is she was super inflamed when she came in. And interestingly enough, she owned horses. And so she was always out. And although she'd wear gloves and all the things, she was constantly around hay. And so she was always aggravating this gluten-based type of, response in the system. So we had to do a lot of reduce and remove. We had to really help to find a strategy so she could approach what she was doing differently with her horses, which was challenging. And she would have occasional flare-ups. But we brought in KPV, BPC, with our initial gut protocol. I brought in a 10-day cycle of Apidolon because she was not sleeping. And it was a huge thing. She was getting less than 6 hours a night. So I brought that in because that really helps with circadian reset as well. It's longevity and it's very restorative and regenerative. And so we brought that in the beginning. We then moved, we kept BPC after we really kind of got some of the microbial imbalance out. We did bring in thymosin alpha 1 to help with immune modulation. She was not on a biologic, so we were fine, and we dosed very low and slow to titrate her up to kind of wake her system back up because she was already having these hyper responses because of all the hay. We brought in thymosin beta 4 for joint repair, anti-inflammatory, really great for the fibrotic conditions. And literally, it was within 2 months, she was like, "Okay, my hands are different." And now they didn't all of a sudden straighten, right? She's like, they don't hurt, they're not inflamed, and okay, something's working right here. So that was like one of the first big things for her. And then it was also energy. So once we really got a lot of the inflammatory things handled, and we were doing a lot for just cellular health, we had just foundational glutathione support, NMN precursors. We were doing essential fatty acids, amino acids to make sure we had to really balance out her macros because she was not getting in the right foundational nutrient density to support, cellular health and efficiency. So we really worked on that. And then we titrated down hormones and we stabilized her thyroid, we stabilized sex hormones, and we really started to focus on resilience. We did lots of cool monitoring. One of the big indicators that we found with her sleep, if you guys don't know this one, we were looking at respiration rate. So a lot of times what's happening when we're not recovering is we're mouth breathing at night. We're dumping way too much CO2. We're not getting enough oxygen saturation in. And it's a stress to the body. It does those little micro awakenings. And so we were able to catch that on her wearable, and we were able to have her start doing some mouth taping, and it made an incredible difference. We did a full circadian protocol with her. So it was all about circadian rhythms, which she did because she lived on the farm. She was pretty good with it, but we really worked on her meal timing. It wasn't about It wasn't about what, it was about when. So we did a lot with that so we could help to naturally regulate a lot of those cycles. We had big changes in her labs, which I don't have time to go over. By the time we were done, 12 months later, she had went from 65 to 56 with her pheno age, joint pain gone, no further progression, inflammatory markers neutral, all within normal ranges, antibody markers within normal ranges. Her mood was great. Her frustration and anxiety was minimal. She had sustained energy daily, and she would only feel fatigued after a hard day of intense physical labor. And so she was good all day. Optimized hormones, libido, very improved. She and her husband were quite happy about that. Hair loss resolved, sleep more restful. She was getting 7 to 7.5 hours a night consistently. Great with the deep and REM, and increased physical stamina, emotional balance, and cognitive clarity. And her resting heart rate also came down. It was a wonderful, complex case. We used some peptides in. We took time. We worked. We supported her, and that's the kind of stuff that you learn about at Peptide University. Thank you guys. We're at time.
Awesome.
We're a few minutes over.
Thanks,
Oh,
Melissa. We're going to just shift gears here. I've brought Dr. Mike back on. And Mike, maybe you could let's just jump ahead. I know we're coming up on time here. So maybe you could well, we just want to put this up here. There's a couple things just in closing. If you're interested in learning more about peptides, then Melissa's got a dosing guide available for you here. That can be a great starting point. There's also the education provided through her platform. So feel free to jump in here. There's a QR code for her. This is heads up. We can help with the data tracking. So Melissa talked about a lot of the labs and biomarkers that help us understand if we're doing things safely and effectively. There's an incredible amount we can learn just from looking at HRV and resting heart rate and body temperature that help us understand how well someone's responding to a peptide or a protocol. So we can help on the data tracking side of things. And then, oh, sorry, there's a question here. It was HUH10 for Peptide University. And then, Mike, did you get some good questions in the chat? Let's start with the Aura Ring.
I did. I did. Well, can you hear me okay? Am I
Yep,
coming
yep.
through?
Mm-hmm.
All right, quickly, Melissa, the code that we have has been tested and failed. So can we, if we don't have a pivot on that, I would say email us at
hold on.
team@mypeptideuniversity.com.
Hold on.
Uh, and if you
Keep
can,
going. No, it's good. It'll be active right now. I'm checking it right now. So
right, that would be great.
10.
Yeah.
HUH10. I'm in the system. You guys keep talking. I'm going to handle it and
So
make sure that
while we're doing that, question number one came from David, and it was earlier in the event where he really wanted to understand the methodology for proving the efficacy of peptides. So he was asking specifically about what is meant by it accelerates tissue repair. He wants to know kind of like, how do we measure that?
So it's the way it works in the pathways and the type of signaling. So one of the things it does is it promotes angiogenesis. Okay, so angiogenesis is anytime we injure something and the body's going to heal it, right? That angiogenic response brings more blood flow, more nutrients to the site of the injury. And so one of the key things that BPC does is it increases that response to increase the utilization, the bioavailability of what the body naturally does to heal to that area. So think of it like it makes the signal even louder. So the body's kind of like, oh, I need more of that. Because if we're not healing and repairing, as an example, using BPC, the question is why? For what reason? Well, a lot of these systems of these people you're dealing with are overloaded, right? Again, toxicant burdens, chronological age deficiencies, high stress, pro-inflammatory environments. So the reason we would take an exogenous molecule peptide to increase the signal is think that the system's really loud. I always think of inflammation, again, I'm using simple terms right now, is a very crowded, loud, noisy room. And so the peptide is going to increase the volume to this area to say over here and come through the noise while you're also doing your protocols to reduce and remove and bring down those fires while you're also helping to raise the volume to get a more targeted response. So different molecules do different things, and that's what we teach about over at Peptide University. So it's a great question, Dave, but it's also a big question. So every molecule is going to activate different pathways and have different responses that they enact in the body. And that's how we tell if they're working, right? Like, can we see a change in those pathways? Which is why I showed you different markers that you're going to measure, because when you understand the mechanism of action, you're like, oh, this is okay. This is supposed to bring down inflammation. Let me look at my inflammatory markers. Has the inflammation come down? It's not just, you will also pair subjectively, right? So you could potentially see the wound. And Dr. Gus has a great story about what happened with his daughter, and they had used BPC, and I think it was thymosin, TB500 injection at the joint, a full tear. Again, this is a very short version. Sorry, Dr. Gus, I don't mean to mess up the story, but basically a year after the injury, tear was still there, did the injection. They had done guided ultrasound. They could see it. Like, you could see the tear was still there, and did the injections within 4 weeks. I think it was 4 weeks, or maybe it was 8 weeks. They redid the ultrasound and it was completely gone. So depending on how you're using them, your scope of practice, what you're treating, what you're doing, you're going to have your different diagnostics that help you verify the efficacy.
Mike, what was his last name?
And
Did you
that is
catch?
the issue. Not everybody's name. That was David, and David. Not everybody's last name was tied to it. So here's the challenge. Sometimes when people fill these out, they only have their first name, last initial. I do have a Jennifer Will who asked a very challenging question that
Okay,
I
so we need first and last name if we're going to follow up to do the giveaway. So
right.
let's do the
So
Aura Ring for Jennifer. How do you spell the last name, Mike?
Will, Will.
Okay, great.
Her question was, and this stumped me, how well do these peptides work to repair with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, since the body makes faulty connective tissues in that condition? And she wanted to know about that.
Is Dr. Gus still on? Because I feel like he actually spoke to this recently. Is Dr. Gus still here, or did he leave? Did he have to go?
Don't
I can
know.
check. He may have, I don't see him on here anymore.
We activated him as a panelist. But if
Mike,
he's not,
in the interest of time, just give us a few names, and if people are still on,
yeah.
we'll just give them the Jennifer, are you still on? Jennifer Will. We'll give that one a minute. Okay, Jennifer's on, so she gets
There
the
we go.
ring.
There we go.
Heart math. Mike, did you get another one? Another
I
name for us
did.
for
Now
heart
this is
math?
Karen B. Karen B. That's all the name that came up.
Okay, is there
She
Karen
wanted to
B on the
know.
webinar? All right, Karen B is on. Karen, can you just email us? Karen, okay, I'm just jotting down your last name here. Make sure we have
By the way,
you.
gang, the code is active. So sorry, you're right. It was set, it was in draft mode. They hadn't pressed launch. It is active. HUH10 is live and active. So anybody can go check that out.
Thank
It
you.
is good.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay, we've got
Um,
Jennifer Will for the Aura. We've got Karen Bucklow for the heart math. We also have the True Vega. Mike, you got another name for us?
I have did I give you Karen B? Did we do that one?
Yeah, we got Karen.
Then Jennifer Will. David unfortunately did not have, and we have a Sarah. What la and unfortunately no last name. What labs do you check before prescribing to help narrow what peptides would be most helpful? Sarah, if you're still on, raise your hand.
So while you guys are doing that, I
David
found
Williams. Got it.
our notes. I want to talk about really quickly the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So it's going to be hypermobility disorder. And so what you're going to think about clinically is, how can we stabilize, right? So how do we support the connective tissue? How do we support those joints and promote healing? And so some of the molecules that we talked about today work actually really quite effectively, or would be appropriate to consider. So BPC, again, we talked about angiogenesis. It's really great for tendons, ligaments, just overall soft tissue support, especially if there's been that kind of ligament laxity. And you can really do it around the area if they've got an area of site of injury. So let's say because of the laxity, they've had an injury, you can get very specific, site specific. TB500 is also going to really help, again, with overall tissue regeneration, but so is that GHK copper. So the thing about GHK copper is, remember, we talked about that with collagen synthesis, right? So that's going to be something that also helps with that extracellular matrix. So is anything going to cure? No, we're not looking at these as curative elements. We're looking at these as supportive and corrective. So what else is at play? What can we bring in? So we're thinking holistically, how do we support stability in the system? And so they can definitely come in and be utilized.
Awesome. So we've got Jennifer Will for the Ring, Karen Bucklow for the Heart Math, Sarah Brown for the True Vega, David Williams for the Cacao. We got the code working for Peptide University. I think that pretty much covers everything here. So,
David, there's so many great questions, and I am
yeah,
so sorry. I didn't even get to look at the chat, you guys. I was just trying to make sure we could get through this. I am so, if you want to send us share questions, I mean, maybe I can do like we can do a rapid fire follow up. Maybe Dr. Gus and Dr. Mike and I will sit down with the questions and we can,
yeah. What
try
we'll
to.
do is usually what we do is we just take the entire chat, we export it. We'll
Great.
we'll put it into a document. We'll answer as many questions as we can that we couldn't get here today. We'll send that out along with the webinar replay, all the links we mentioned, and anything else that we covered here for resources. So if we didn't get to your question, we'll follow up when we send out the replay and make sure we get it out to everybody. And again, this is a incredibly diverse topic that requires a lot of bioindividuality and expertise and proper diagnostic testing and protocols and dosing. So it's obviously very comprehensive. This was meant to be an introduction. Melissa and her team can take you as deep as you want to go. So in closing, Melissa, John, Mike, anything else you want to add here before we sign off?
I think we're
I'll
good.
just say thank you. You guys were, I wish, I love doing these. I love seeing the interest. I love all the questions. I'm going to be so excited to kind of review after the fact. Please check us out. Like we love, just like Heads Up Health does, we love to do as much complimentary education. You don't have to pay us to be able to learn from us. So once a month, you can always come on our free classes. If you want to go deeper, you liked what you learned today, you want to be supported in a peer-to-peer community, please come over and be a part of us. Like what you saw today is what you get. We're very authentic, we're very heart-centered. I don't pretend to have all the answers because I don't, but I think what is great is just like this community today, we have such a diversified field of practitioners coming together to share. And so we are crowdsourcing, right? We're crowdsourcing data, we're bringing it together. We're actually going to be setting up IRB studies later this year. So we're only going to keep, bringing the data together, bringing the information together, and making sure that you are, as our fellow practitioners, as supported so that you can confidently move forward, because healthcare is changing. It is rapidly changing, and it's only going to continue to evolve. And with AI and everything else, you're just going to see it like in the next 18 months, it's going to look radically different than it does today. So come be a part of a community where you can be, supported every step of the way. We would love to have you guys.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Melissa. Thank John. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And next month, we will be diving into Dr. Len Pastrano. He'll be talking about some of the top metrics to look at as we start to measure longevity outcomes. So we'll be going through his longevity certification, looking at tracking some of the key biomarkers of longevity. After that, I believe we'll be doing a look at the state of the art in the clinical application of psychedelic medicine. So we've got some exciting webinars on the roadmap. And then for today, we'll follow up with everything that we've covered here and more. So thank you, everyone.